What's going on, everyone? Thanks so much for tuning in to another episode of the Ducks Dish podcast. I'm your host, Max Torres, with ScoopDuck on 3, coming to you live on Wednesday, June 11th, 2025, from Long Beach, California. Excited to have you guys here. Thanks so much for being along. Apologize for the delay on those that are watching us live on X at mTorres Sports and here on YouTube at ScoopDuck on 3. Do me a favor and like the stream, like the video, and subscribe to the YouTube channel if you guys haven't already. We are your go-to spot for Oregon football and Oregon football recruiting here on YouTube. Did have some pretty significant technical difficulties prior to today's recording, so apologize for the delay there. If it happens here on the live stream, I just ask that you bear with me. Thank you in advance. So let's break down, like it says there on the title, Oregon's first big official visit weekend of the summer is officially in the books now. And we're kind of right in the middle, obviously, of the week on Wednesday. So I want to get into some of my thoughts and analysis on Oregon's official visit weekend from June 6th and 7th. And then also talk a little bit, maybe depending on how timing goes. We'll go for about 30 minutes is the plan for today. We'll see if we can get into some thoughts on this upcoming weekend's official visitors for Dan Lanning and the Ducks. Let's talk about our first big visitor, and that was the number 1 linebacker in the 2026 class, Tyler Atkinson out of Lawrenceville, Georgia, Grayson High School. You see the photos here on the screen if you're watching us on X or on YouTube. I mean, just super cool photos. You can see that the Ducks pulled out all the stops for this visit. They had the lab, life, academics, and ball theme for this weekend, but I think it's pretty cool because it kind of just hones in on the point that you want to recruit guys that are built in the lab, that are just kind of a different breed, that kind of an idea. So the attention to detail on the official visit setup is obviously very impressive and intentional from this Oregon staff. And the buzz coming out of this trip, from what I've been able to gather, is that Oregon's really kind of being viewed as a dark horse of sorts for Tyler Atkinson. He started his official visit slate prior to landing in Eugene with a trip out to Death Valley to see Clemson. Dabo Swinney and the Tigers are on a recruiting heater here in the 2026 class. And then after this trip to Oregon, he announced on Wednesday that he is going to be taking his official visit to Georgia. So the in-state Bulldogs will get a chance to make their pitch with Atkinson this weekend over there in Athens. And I think that Oregon's got a good chance here, or a decent chance, I would say, because they feel like they've really laid out their plan for Atkinson, and they haven't landed a linebacker of his caliber from the high school ranks since Dan Lanning was hired. So like that is kind of why I believe that he's a guy that Oregon's willing to go above and beyond for, to do what it takes to land him. I mean, this is a linebacker that doesn't come around very often, but at the same time, we obviously have to acknowledge that he's all the way out in Georgia. Kirby Smart and the Bulldogs are going to do everything they can to land him. You don't get top players out of Georgia from Kirby Smart very easily. And they are one of those teams that looks like they've kind of flipped the switch here in the 2026 class. So I imagine a lot of Oregon fans that are watching this, that are listening to this, maybe are sitting there asking themselves, well, when's Oregon going to flip the switch and start landing commitments? I think that July or later this month is probably what you're looking at for that, because a lot of Oregon's top visitors from this month do have decision dates set for early July. And we know a lot of these rising seniors want to kind of wrap up their recruiting process for the most part, and kind of put that behind them as they look ahead to their senior seasons. And they just want to be able to focus on football. But I think another aspect of Atkinson's recruitment that is unique is obviously his brand, right? Acting Up. I don't know if we have any here on his Instagram, but we know that that's a big part of just his process, is building up his brand personally as an athlete. I mean, he's worked his butt off and become a national recruit. So From some of the people that I've spoken with, they were kind of able to sprinkle in some details of acting up from throughout the weekend into his visit. So I feel like in today's NIL era of recruiting and the transfer portal era of recruiting, there's no detail that's too small. So is Oregon gonna win out his recruitment just because they did that? Probably not. But man, it certainly doesn't hurt you. So Oregon's obviously got some big competition for Tyler Atkinson, but I think that they came away from this weekend feeling like they made a solid impression and did what they needed to do in order to stay in the race here. You have other schools like Georgia in the mix that we just mentioned, of course, Ohio State. I think Auburn is another one that you hear mentioned with Tyler Atkinson, the 5-star linebacker. So no timeline really for his commitment. It seems like it's one that is probably going to drag out a little bit longer in this case. So Oregon's willing to play the long game. If you look at Tyler Atkinson's highlights, I don't think it's too hard to understand why he might be the kind of player that is worth doing that for. But man, you got a really good player here, and he's undoubtedly Oregon's top linebacker target here in the 2026 class. You also had Tristan Phillips, the 4-star Ventura High School linebacker from Southern California. He was in town for his official visit, so I think it probably helps that those two were able to be around each other a little bit, and you can kind of sell the two of them on that vision of playing together and being Oregon's linebackers of the future in this class. But the names don't get bigger than Atkinson for linebacker and Oregon this cycle. So for them to get the visit here, I think is certainly good. You don't really know if the timing matters as much as it used to, right? That's one of the things we've been talking about a little bit over on the message board on ScoopDuck. You guys got to come see us, join thousands of other Duck fans for some lively interactions, should we say, over on the ScoopDuck message boards. We've been talking about, is it still beneficial to get the last or final official visit, a later official visit here in the month of June, given the fact that a lot of these top recruits are eyeing summer commitments? What do you guys think? Let me know in the live chat if you think it still helps to get the later or the last official visit, because it seems like a lot of schools are, putting together their NIL packages, their NIL offerings, and kind of talking cheddar on these visits. So it seems like some schools are trying to move up those visits so that they can do that. They can put their offer out there and then not risk missing out on some of these top talents. But all that said, we still have about 6 months until the early signing period. So it's certainly not a cut and dry equation, but I like what Oregon did with Tyler Atkinson. I wouldn't say I'm expecting him to go to Oregon at this moment, but I think that they just got to hold steady and continue to do what they're doing in that recruitment, because he is a heck of a player. Let's talk about another top target, another 5-star that was in town for the Ducks this weekend, and that is 5-star Las Vegas, Nevada, Bishop Gorman safety Jet Washington. I have some of his official visit pictures from the weekend up on the screen now, and he has really emerged, I think, as Oregon's top safety target here in the 2026 class. I mean, you have Oregon going after a handful of other guys. Joey O'Brien, another one here in the 26 class that was on campus this weekend for his official visit to Oregon. Joey O'Brien's going to be announcing his commitment on June 20th and has one more official visit left to take. That will be in South Bend to see Notre Dame this weekend. But some pretty good quotes coming out from Washington after this trip. He spoke with On3 Director of Recruiting Chad Simmons and said, quote, "The coaches made me feel like I have been there 50 plus times and that it's home for me. It's a home for me. I spent time with Coach Tosh Lapoy, Coach Hampton, and Coach Lanning. Their message was that I'm a priority and Oregon is a great fit for me." And it seems like the Ducks have created some separation in this recruitment with Washington, and this might be his last official visit before he ends up making a decision. He hasn't set a commitment date, but he has taken 3 official visits to this point now. You have Alabama in the books. He took a midweek official visit to USC last week, and then now you have him out there at Oregon. He was originally going to visit Ohio State this past weekend, but he decided to switch things up and slot in Oregon for this past weekend. So I think in this case with Washington, especially if he is eyeing a commitment in the somewhat near future, I would think maybe possibly July or maybe sooner. I think with a really strong trip, the returns coming out of the weekend have been very, very positive for Oregon and Jet Washington. Obviously, you have distance on your side. If you're Oregon here recruiting up against Alabama as the main competitor, I think that certainly bodes well for you. Oregon feels like he is a absolute top priority in this class. I wrote about it over on ScoopDuck, like a top 3 target overall, regardless of position in this class. The Ducks already have one safety commit in the 26 class, and that is Xavier Larice out of the state of Florida. He was on campus this past weekend as well. So very, very defensive heavy recruiting weekend for the Ducks. We have a comment here that's talking about some safety recruiting. Brendan Duck says O'Brien just got crystal balled to Bama this morning. Then Barry caught him here. I think it was Jaira Edwards that we were talking about getting predicted to Bama. And maybe we just talk about that a little bit here, because that was one of the kind of developments that we saw come out of this official visit weekend, not just for Oregon, but obviously for Caleb DeBoer and the Crimson Tide. So Jaira Edwards getting predicted to Bama, not a massive surprise. He did just take his official visit with the Crimson Tide over the weekend, and he's been a top target for Oregon at safety this cycle, but isn't a guy that's gotten back to campus a whole lot. And I think that is somewhat indicative of where Oregon stands in this recruitment. He does have his official visit scheduled with Oregon for later this month. And I believe he too has a July 5th commitment date. But if you're Oregon and you can get 2 of Jet Washington, Joey O'Brien, and Jaira Edwards, I think you're taking that every day of the week. But if Jaira Edwards ends up going to Alabama, Joey O'Brien is going to be one that we have to kind of see what happens. You got Oregon in the mix there with Notre Dame, Penn State, and Clemson. He's at Notre Dame this weekend, like I talked about. I think that he is also someone that Oregon's been viewed as a long shot for Joey O'Brien. But hey, I think that things are certainly trending in the right direction. You have 2 spring visits for O'Brien out to Eugene, and he just took his official visit with Oregon. And Oregon feels like they made a good move there and that they're not out of it. So we'll have to see what happens there. But I think that Jet Washington is the recruit that Oregon probably moved the needle with the most during his official visit this weekend. So we'll have to wait and see what happens with Jet Washington. I feel pretty good right now as far as where Oregon stands, but nothing's a sure thing when you have schools like Alabama and USC also in the mix there for a top tier defensive talent or any recruit. It looks like. Let's see. We've got a comment from Retired Nurse who says LB is a huge concern. Let's talk about linebacker recruiting for a second, right? We just talked about Tyler Atkinson, Retired Nurse. I'm not sure if you've been in the stream for that portion of it, but Oregon's got a fairly small board at linebacker. They only signed one true linebacker last cycle in Gavin Nix, who they flipped from Miami. He came from IMG Academy out there in Florida, and he's a really good talent that a lot of people are excited about. And then you have 3 guys that they signed in the 2024 class in Braden Platt, Dylan Williams, and Kamar Matudi. So you're kind of at the point where you need one of those guys to hit this year alongside Bryce Betcher, Devin Jackson, Jerry Mixon, guys like that. I'm not saying it's a huge concern linebacker recruiting right now. A lot of your top guys are still on the board. Tyler Atkinson's still out there, right? Bo Jandreau from Arizona, which is the state that Brian Michalowski is from. He comes to town this weekend. His twin brother, Nico, is committed to Oklahoma, and that's the last official visit for him. So we'll see if they end up being a package deal. I don't think that that's necessarily the case. Not like their approach, because Nico hasn't been offered by Oregon. So like that option isn't really on the table if they both want to go to Oregon at the moment. Let's talk about some other linebacker targets that you have for Oregon here in the 26 class. It seems like they obviously at least want to take one, but you're going for 2 if at all possible. Let me see here. Sorry, I'm just trying to get a little refresh on Oregon's tight end offers here. A little all over the place today. So just bear with me. You got Kenneth Goodwin. He's another one that Oregon's going after here in the 2026 class. Originally from Vegas, playing his high school football in Southern California. Now he's over at Bishop Montgomery in Torrance. He's believed to still be taking an official visit to Oregon this cycle, this month. So I think that's another guy that Oregon's right there in the thick of it with. Nick Abrams out of Owings Mills, Maryland, McDonough High School. He has Oregon in his top group. He's down to 4, I think. You got Oregon, Michigan, Bama, and Georgia. He's supposed to take an official visit to Oregon as well before a July 16th commitment date. So I think maybe you'd like to see more linebackers in the fold for Oregon right now in the 26 class, but I do think that Oregon has a pretty good shot. They feel like they're right in the thick of it there with a handful of their top remaining targets. So got to get those guys on campus and see if you can move the needle a little bit on the official visit. So let's talk about another guy here on the pod with Oregon's first official visit weekend of the month in the fold. Give me a second here to pull this one up. These photos are pretty sweet. You got Brandon Arrington Jr. out of Spring Valley, California, Mount Miguel High School. He is one of Oregon's top cornerback targets this cycle. He was in town for his official visit. Like I said earlier, a big weekend for defensive recruiting. We know that he is one of the fastest players in the state of California, and Oregon's done a really good job recruiting the San Diego area. You see him here posting some pictures. He was one of the guys that I felt the best about Oregon's chances with in the 2026 class, and I think Oregon's right there in the thick of it at the top of his recruitment. But based on the calls that I've been making lately, it seems like you really got to keep an eye on Texas A&M for Brandon Arrington, which kind of feels fitting because they were the first school that really had some traction in his recruitment. He's focused on Oregon, USC, Texas A&M, and Alabama. Took an official visit to Washington as well. But I think that Oregon's doing all the right things here with Arrington and his recruitment. This is a recruitment where NIL is going to be a factor. So I think that's something that you can't overlook as he works. He also works toward a July 5th commitment date. I'm working on getting an interview with Arrington, but he's obviously very busy on the recruiting trail. After he moved his official visit up to Oregon this past weekend, he also has plans to check out USC, Alabama, and Texas A&M after starting at Penn State, going to Washington, and then Oregon this past weekend. But definitely wanted to hit on Arrington because he is a big talent for Oregon that they're going after here in the 26 class. And he's right up there with Davon Benjamin as well as Kari Adams in the 2026 recruiting class that the Ducks are going after. So Kari Adams and Davon Benjamin still haven't taken their official visits out to Oregon just yet. Davon Benjamin was just at Texas over the weekend. Believe he's expected on campus in Eugene this weekend, and Kari Adams has been out to places like Penn State and Michigan. So I think Oregon's got some ground to make up there with Kari Adams, but feeling pretty good about their chances with Davon Benjamin. So let's talk about a couple more guys here on the show. How about Richard Wesley, 5-star edge rusher from Sierra Canyon here in Southern California, a one-time commit to Oregon in the 2026 class. He was only committed for about 17 days, but the Ducks were the first team to get him back on campus after he committed and then backed off of his pledge. And Oregon's doing a really good job here. I mean, this is a recruitment that they've done a tremendous job building relationships with. You see this picture here on X where he has other edge rushers on Oregon's roster in his photo shoot. You got Elijah Rushing, Blake Purchase, and Tatum Tuioti all making an appearance. The only guy that isn't there is Mateo Uyunglele, and I think he had to come back to Southern California this past weekend to support a family or friend in a graduation. So Oregon's done a really good job here building connections with Wesley. He's got relationships with guys on the roster and at his position already. But I get the feeling that he wants to kind of play out this process, and he's going to take some more official visits, right? You have Texas A&M, and Ohio State as the main schools to watch here in this recruitment for Wesley. But Oregon's determined to play the long game with Wesley. And if that's what it takes to get him back in the class, then I think that they're willing to do that. But Oregon feels great about where they stand with Wesley coming out of this trip. And that's pretty much what I expected. So there's not a clear number 2 in his recruitment right now, but I did list some of those schools that you got to watch in this recruitment. So that's what you got there. Quick little hit on Richard Wesley. Our guy Barry with a comment here saying we're playing with the big dogs now and the commitments are harder. but worth the stress everyone is feeling. I trust in Dan. Yeah, Oregon's got, I believe, the number 10 class right now with 7 verbal commitments in the 2026 cycle. So um, recruiting is becoming more unpredictable than ever. NIL, transfer portal, you got roster limits. All of those things are at play now. Branding obviously is super important, but Oregon's going against the best of the best. It's not like you're recruiting against a lot of really small time schools. You're going against the Georgias, you're going against the Texases, you're going against the Ohio States, and obviously some of these schools. I'm not going to name any specifically, but you have some schools that are being very aggressive with NIL and what they're offering, uh, leading up to these verbal commitments. And I think that Oregon realizes that maybe now isn't the time to make your best offer. Like I just got through saying, you have 6 more months to go for the early signing period, and you still got football to play, right? I think that's the other thing that sounds obvious but bears repeating. There is still football to be played, and a lot of these schools that maybe have great recruiting classes, those guys aren't playing on the field this year. So Oregon needs to realize that. I think fans need to realize, I should say, that Oregon has one of the best rosters in college football, and it's not easy to keep that talent intact. It's not cheap to keep that talent intact. And there's been this whole conversation about Oregon's recruiting approach. Are they maybe not prioritizing high school players as much as they used to? I think they still are placing a big emphasis on recruiting the high school level, but you also have to prioritize keeping that current roster intact and being able to be competitive for top transfer portal players. So I think that's exactly what we're seeing now. And I still expect Oregon to be one of the best recruiting classes in the country come December. I mean, I'm right there with you, Barry. I trust Lanning and the rest of this coaching staff. It's not like they forgot what they were doing overnight, but I can also acknowledge, I think it's important to acknowledge, like, hey, they've taken some losses on the recruiting trail. You're not expecting Oregon to lose out on Tommy Tofi to Cal. They just offered his younger brother Ernie, by the way. He's a 2028. Maybe that's something that kind of helps sweeten the deal there a little bit, even though they are pretty far away. So there's no one's panicking out there at Oregon. It's just that it's becoming a very volatile and crazy time to recruit. And hey, if Oregon doesn't get commitments from some of these top guys that are getting massive promises at other schools, maybe it's good to finish second. Maybe someone goes to a school because they're getting promised XYZ, and then let's say hypothetically those promises don't come through. Hey, look at Oregon. And I think I've talked about this with Justin before. He's talked about it on ScoopDuck. Like, Oregon has a very strong reputation in the NIL department with regard to following through and not just promising things and keeping those promises. So if someone goes to a school and they don't get what they were promised, maybe they want to leave. And then Oregon's like, hey, we're not burning that bridge. We're still there for you, and we still want you on our team. We got this comment from Dan Lanning, love the name, saying Max knows ball. Appreciate it. Anton Z says we're gonna flip Cody Green in December. Whew, that would be quite a big move for the Ducks. I mean, it'd be a recommit at that point. I know a lot of people were expecting USC to be the main competition for Oregon there when he was still committed, but we know that Washington's doing really well right now on the recruiting trail. Lots of big commitments for them here in the 26 class. And then obviously Brandon the Ducks commenting here that Cody Green is from Seattle and his brother's on the team. So we know that has something to do with the hometown pull clearly for the Huskies. But I know for a fact that Oregon, when they're talking to a lot of these recruits and making their pitch and laying things out, they're leaning on relationships, being genuine. The Nike connection, obviously, that relationship that you can build with Nike for life after football. And then the proof is in the pudding. Looking at the guys that they're developing, Alik Terry has fielded a Joe Moore Award finalist offensive line each of the past 2 cycles, and Josh Connerly just went in the first round. So I think that you just continue to bang that drum and and they're looking for the right guy. That it's hard to find guys that are loyal and their commitments are going to stick in this NIL era. So in these official visits, for example, like I was talking to a source earlier today, like Oregon likes these official visits because you can get the family out and talk to the family, get a good feel for what the family is about, get a good feel for what the recruit's about. Are they made from the right stuff? Do they have like those kind of DNA traits that line up with Oregon that we hear about all the time? Growth, connection, toughness, sacrifice. I think those are just some that come to the front of mind for me. So wanted to say if I had any other guys that I wanted to hit on. I mean, we know Oregon's going to be hosting Rider Lions this weekend for his official visit. I think that's something that you certainly have to keep an eye on, right? If you're Oregon, they're looking for a quarterback here in the 2026 recruiting class after having a commitment from Jonas Williams, but he, of course, flipped his commitment to USC. So the Ducks are kind of empty-handed right now, but they want to get somebody in the 2026 class. The Elite 11 is next week. And 2026 Oregon quarterback target Matt Ponatoski out of Cincinnati is going to be there at the Elite 11 finals right before he heads to his official visit in Eugene with Oregon. But Rider Lions, he's taking that official visit this weekend with the Ducks. And this is a visit that we've had scheduled for quite a while. We've had circled, I guess, on the schedule, on the calendar for quite a while because he is the top uncommitted quarterback in the 2026 class. And after Jared Curtis committed to Georgia, I mean, he really kind of went to the forefront of Oregon's quarterback picture. And it really feels like Rider Lyons has been Will Stein's guy all along. I mean, you look at the tape, he's just got tremendous talent, a true dual threat kind of a guy. The dude is just really competitive, and he wins at a tremendously high rate over at Folsom High School in Northern California. So it seems like maybe a recent development for Rider. I mean, we can't say this for sure, but maybe USC kind of got eliminated from the mix here. He was supposed to take his official visit to USC last week, and it looks like that trip fell through, got canceled, whatever you want to say. It didn't end up happening. So we've been saying for a while now that Oregon and BYU were the main two schools to watch here for Rider Lions. I have my RPM pick on Oregon, as does Justin Hopkins, Steve Wiltfong, and Pete Nakos. But as we've kind of seen in the past, with LDS recruits, and Lions is one of them, you can never count out BYU. I mean, just for reference here, I had Oregon pegged to land McKay Madsen in the 2025 class. And I remember when I was taken off from San Antonio after covering the Navy All-American practices that week, I was watching the live stream, and McKay Madsen pulled out that BYU hat and chose the Cougars over Oregon. So I'm not naive. I'm not saying that Oregon's a shoo-in for Rider Lions with BYU also in the mix. You definitely have to keep an eye on BYU, but he is a guy that is looking to commit as soon as possible. I interviewed him last month, and he told me that he was looking to commit as soon as he can. So this is one that I can assure you Oregon will try to, or hope to, wrap up this weekend. So it's going to be a big one to watch, because if you can get Rider Lions in the fold, I don't care if he is taking a mission trip, that's momentum. Getting the 5-star quarterback is always going to be a plus for you. And we know that Oregon is looking for, Oregon's looking for a top passer here. He's raved all along throughout the recruiting process about his relationship with Will Stein. I know Oregon has visited him more at Folsom than BYU has. I think that is notable, because they're putting in that effort to get him. So I still feel good about my pick. I mean, I'm not saying it's a guarantee. Nothing's a guarantee in recruiting, but I feel like Oregon's still in a good spot here with Rider Lions as he heads to Oregon this weekend. Maybe we'll have more on that later on this week, but second big official visit weekend for Oregon is coming up. We had a great turnout here in the live stream. So again, thank you guys so much for being here. If you are, make sure you follow me anywhere you have your social media at mtorres sports, and subscribe to the ScoopDuck on through YouTube channel. While you're at it, come and see us at scoopduck.com and engage with thousands of other Duck fans. I also have the ScoopDuck newsletter, which is being sent out almost daily. So it's a fun time. It's a very fun time right now. I think Oregon's building up to going on a recruiting run. It's going to happen at some point. Oregon is going to get theirs. And of course, we're like 2.5 months away from the start of the college football season and like 2 months away from the start of the high school season. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and we want you to join us on that journey. So come and see us at scoopduck.com. But until next time, thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode of the Ducks Dish podcast.